it's incredibly important, I think, to look to the future. We don't know how this is going to unfold. And one of the greatest unknowns, frankly, is how much economic damage this will do.
Yes.
It's already very serious. That's impacting massively on people's lives. But at the end of this, there will be, I think, a furious debate, no matter how reasonably the bulk of people have, in the end, behaved, about where to from here. And the reason it's really important to me is that I think after the great financial crisis, as Matthew Paris wrote at the time in your country, face it, we're broke. No one wanted to face the fact that collectively we had been irresponsible. We'd built up horrendous levels of public sector debt. Both that problem and the attempt to, if you like, overcome it by creating inflation, which made people who held assets wealthier, but made it harder and continue to make it harder for young people who want to get into their first home or whatever, build wealth, harder for them. It opens up a real fissure. The point that seems concerning to me is that we're not well prepared for this economic calamity, and it is a calamity, because we didn't pull together in the broader national interests in our individual countries after the GFC. We will have to this time. We really will. So the sort of leadership we get will be very important. And there'll be those who will want to play with new monetary theories and we can all pay ourselves whatever we like and just print more money. There will be those who will be saying, no, actually, this is a terrible hangover. We have to prepare for the next downturn. We've got to get our house in order. Who wins that debate, I think, will be incredibly important for the West.
Absolutely, but you know very well that after the financial crisis of 2008, countries which were, for instance, merely reducing public spending in order to service the debt, among other things, were presented as going through periods of great austerity. I mean, remember the use of that word, austerity? Austerity for a slowdown in borrowing, for instance. It would not seem to be austerity in the eyes of many economists, and wouldn't feel like austerity in the eyes of many of the public, but yet that was what it was always presented as. You know, Britain was said to have gone through a period of great austerity. We didn't. And I do worry, like a lot of us who would like to have responsible levels of borrowing and minimal levels of debt. I do worry about what this leads to in Britain, like other countries. Inevitably, our Chancellor has, our Conservative Chancellor and Conservative government have approved a massive fiscal stimulus, and that may well be right at this moment. It's very hard to say how you could allow the number of businesses, including small businesses, to go under that are to go under. Huge, personally, there are many people I know who are self-employed who are now facing incredibly tough times. Key public workers will, in this one respect, be okay, but there are huge sections of the economy which just won't be. And the correct response probably is something unusual. But yes, I can't say it doesn't worry me like it worries you, because I don't like to see the approval of the economics of delayed fantasy.
We need to prepare ourselves for that debate. It will be a very, very important one. What has been announced in Britain and in Australia and many other countries has been often been called stimulus packages. They're not. They're rescue packages. They're necessary. You can hardly leave people without hope and without means of feeding and looking after themselves.
Yeah.
But the reality is that in Britain alone, something like 15% of GDP has just been added to your national debt. In Australia, we're not very behind already. And indebtedness is already threatening, well, it was already threatening future generations with
Yes.
absolutely
Yes.
unthinkable levels of taxation. So how we
Yes.
will require us next time not to shy away, I think, for some very tough decisions, not to give up on the need to pull
Yeah.
together.
That's right. I probably the only way to do that, again, you know better than me, but I'd have thought politically the only way to do that is to make it clear that what we're going through in this stimulus or rescue package is something we will have to pay for.
Yes.
You know, that this is the bonus, but it will require a payback. There is something slightly immoral about borrowing that you expect to be paid back by the next generation, and that it is not a decent way for a society to treat itself.
I agree. Very strongly. If we're not prepared to live within our means, and we rather stack our exalted ideas about how we should live against our children, we need to be asking ourselves tough questions. And this will throw up a lot of tough questions.
And by the way, sorry, one other thing on that, which is the basic presumption of it is that the next generation will not go through anything similarly challenging, isn't it? I mean, that is it's like when Britain indebted itself during the Second World War, it did so not just to survive, but in the presumption that this Second World War would be something which would not happen again, and therefore the debt would be able to be paid through the succeeding decades. Is anyone confident that something like the Wuhan coronavirus will not happen again in our lifetimes, let alone something similar happening in the lifetime of the next generation? You know, that would be, you would have to have some kind of certainty like that to legitimately, morally indebt the next generation.
I take the point, and I think it's an incredibly important point. We need to start to clarify our thinking around these issues. We have to assume there will be future shocks. And by the time this is over, we will have used almost all of the shots in the locker. You know, we've had incredibly low interest rates. We've had the printing of money in various forms and guises, liquidity everywhere. And we haven't wound back our public sector debts. Now we're about to act massively. And I don't want to say that we should despair, but I do want to say we will have to be more realistic and more honest than we were after the GFC. I personally, for our children and grandchildren's sake.
Thank you for watching this episode. We appreciate your support. If you value vital conversations like this one, be sure to subscribe to the channel there and also click the notification bell to stay up to date with new releases.